So another one of Russia's allies has decided that it might want to start a war because it wants more land. Many people are worried because it seems like Venezuela is about to invade Guyana and seize most of its territory. Now, the history of this conflict dates back quite a few decades. So, before Guyana became a country in 1966, it was previously a British colony. And before the 1890s, this area of land was part of Venezuela. But then the British took it from them, and then it became part of the Guyana colony. And then 60 years later, it became part of the new country of Guyana. So for Guyana's entire existence, it's had this land, but Venezuela's always been claiming this land and demanding that Guyana give this land back because they had it before the 1890s. So Venezuela still claims this strip of land from Guyana, and it forms 74% of Guyana's entire land area. And it also has a lot of oil. So Guyana recently discovered oil and gas fields in the surrounding waters, and Guyana saw that this would massively benefit their economy. But Venezuela wants that oil for itself, so it's saying, no, you don't have the right to that oil, that's Venezuelan oil, give this land back to us, give that oil to us. So that's been sort of a dispute they've had for quite a few years. But so Venezuela just held a referendum to ask its population whether this land should belong to Venezuela. And supposedly, 95% of Venezuelans voted yes, in favor of this land belonging to Venezuela. But I made a video a few days ago predicting that the referendum results would be like 99% in favor, and I wasn't that far off. So Venezuela claims that 95% of Venezuelans say, yes, this land is ours, it should belong to us. But as I mentioned in that video, Venezuela has a history of rigging elections, or at least its most recent election in 2018. It was rigged to keep the ruling dictator Nicolas Maduro in power. And, Venezuela is considered the most brutal and authoritarian dictatorship, not just in South America, but like in the entire Western Hemisphere. The Venezuelan government routinely abuses the human rights of its citizens, it violently suppresses protests, and it imprisons and tortures and executes political opposition and activists. Meanwhile, Guyana is a democracy. So yeah, I wouldn't trust the whole 95% referendum result. The Venezuelan government's just using that so-called result to possibly justify an invasion of Guyanese territory to try seize that land. But my question is, why don't they just hold a referendum in that strip of land to ask them, oh, do you want to be part of Venezuela or do you want to be part of Guyana? Why did the Venezuelan government ask its own people, hey, should we conquer those people over there, rather than asking the actual people in that strip of land that Venezuela wants? It's like, why don't the people living there have a say? Why can't they decide which government they are ruled by? Why does Venezuela ask its own people whether they consent to invading some other country's land and taking that land for themselves? Many countries just insist on seizing land by force and annexing it without asking the people there if they want to be ruled by them. So many territorial disputes, in my opinion, should just be solved by referendum. Like Kashmir between India and Pakistan, those two have been fighting over that land for decades. Like, why not just have a referendum in Kashmir to ask them, oh, do you want to be part of India or do you want to be part of Pakistan? And several other conflicts like that. So with this war, it's just ridiculous how Venezuela thinks it's enough to ask its own people whether they should take land from Guyana rather than asking the people in Guyana if they want to be ruled by Venezuela. So many people think that Venezuela rigged this referendum to make it seem like its people want Venezuela to take this land, and now there are concerns that Venezuela might actually send soldiers into Guyana to seize this land by force. And we can really see a pattern emerging where Russia's allies just insist on expanding their borders by invading their neighbors and seizing their land by force. So we've seen this with Russia invading Ukraine and stealing its land and saying this belongs to Russia now. We can see it with how China's busy plotting to try and invade Taiwan and seize that land by force. We can see North Korea creating tensions with South Korea because North Korea wants to conquer South Korea. And also with Serbia, Serbia's wanting to take back Kosovo. So Russia's allies, they're all just trying to steal other countries' land, and Venezuela's just the newest one doing that, bullying its neighbor, trying to provoke tensions, trying to start a war over its land and oil. Russia's probably going to support Venezuela in this war. Nicaragua, I think, has already said it's going to support Venezuela. Cuba will probably support Venezuela. But Guyana has support from the United States and Brazil, which are the two most powerful militaries in the Americas. So if Venezuela were to try and invade Guyana, it seems like Brazil might jump in to help protect Guyana, because Guyana can't defeat Venezuela on their own. If it was just a war between Venezuela and Guyana, Guyana would obviously definitely lose, because Venezuela has 30 million people and Guyana only has 800,000. So has no chance. But because Brazil is such a massively powerful country in the region, and America will probably jump in to help Guyana, if they come to Guyana's aid, then Venezuela will probably lose the war. So let's just hope that America and Brazil come to protect Guyana. And let's actually just hope that Venezuela doesn't start a war, because we really don't need another war right now. And it could cause a lot of civilian deaths. So, you know, let's just hope that peace prevails and nothing happens. But I'm going to keep an eye on this conflict quite closely.